everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I am doing an advanced tutorial on the 2x6 angles die. This die is great for creating a border around your page, but I am also going to be using the 3x3 X Factor die to make it a little more advanced for those of you who want to take your pages to the next level. This is a great demo for you. To create a page like I'm doing today, it will certainly take some planning. So I'm trying to get these certain angles. I'm trying to show you here. With these two dies, see here, I make that angle with one photograph. And I'm going to be doing that on this entire page. So you do want to make sure to take your time when choosing your photographs. And you want to make sure the dies are pointed the right direction. It's really important, like here, I wanted to make sure that the angles die and the 3x3 X Factor die are rotated in the correct direction, especially since I want to make sure these photographs will fit into those spaces that I need. All right, so I have all my photos planned for today's demo, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first I'm going to cut with the angles die. So of course I put it into the machine along with my card stock. And as I roll it through, you see the die popped out really easily. And that's going to be the frame that we're going to place the photos inside of. And next I'm going to cut with the 3x3 X Factor die. I am going to be cutting with both of these dies 4 times. And as you can see, that was a very easy die to use as well. Right now, I'm using my Hermodado dispenser. This has repositionable glue, and I placed it carefully on the back of my angles die cut here, and then I'm going to place it on my grid paper. And you do want to pay attention when you glue it down which way that triangle in the center is facing. You want to make sure it's consistent all the way around the layout, or else the pattern might not match up in the end. So here I made sure the triangle's facing down. And I did grab a piece of cardstock here so I didn't get glue on the grid paper or on the table. It's nice to have a piece of cardstock because then later you might be gluing down your photos and it's not fun getting those sticky dots on your photographs. Alright, now I have all my angles dies on the page, so I'm going to start gluing down my 3x3 X Factor die here. This does come in a set of 2 dies, by the way, and this is one of them, if you haven't seen it already on snapandcrop.com. All right, and again, if you notice, I am putting the dies, the 3x3 X Factor die down, so that line in the center is pointed in a specific direction, and basically it's going to line up with the angles dies. All right, have my last one here as I put the glue down, and I'm going to place this one down. All right, so in the end, your page should look exactly like this. Now I'm going to start cutting my photographs, and this is the trickiest part of the process, and it's why I consider this more of an advanced tutorial, because this does take extra time and planning to make sure your photos are cut the right way. And as you can see, the angles die is way too long for both of these dies to be cut at the same time. So I will be putting them through the machine separately. So first I'm using the 3x3 X Factor die here. And I'm going to be keeping that, or this portion here. And then next I'm going to be cutting with the angles die. And I'm going to place it over my last cut. Although I do want that kite in there, so it is scooted over a little bit more to make sure my subject's in there. All right, since this die is very long, I am going to use scissors to cut off the photograph the portion I already cut, because it wouldn't have fit through the machine very well. All right, so I got those 2 cuts. And again, and I'm going to emphasize with this one, make sure that when you cut your photograph that both of your dies are in the direction you want. So that's, again, why it's important to plan your photographs beforehand. And so since I planned it, I know which way each cut needs to go. So I just cut with the X Factor die, and now I'm going to use the angles die. So, you do want to pay attention to which way that X Factor die is facing, and with the angles die, you have to pay attention to which side you're cutting on, and also which way the angles die is going. Is it horizontal or vertical? So that's very important when you're planning these layouts to pay attention to that. All right. You may have noticed I am using washi tape to make sure the dies stay well in place, and I highly recommend using washi tape. I may not use it later on, but I'm a lot more confident with the machine. But if this is your first time using the die, or if you don't have a magnetic plate with your die machine, I would definitely use washi tape with this die. See, just now I did not use washi tape. If you are using washi tape, you want to make sure that the washi tape is not stuck on the part of the photograph you're going to use, because oftentimes when I use washi tape, it leaves a residue. Not all of them do that, but I find a lot of them do that. So make sure to stick it on the part of your photograph that you're not using on your layout. It's not the end of the world, I guess, if it has the residue, but I prefer not to have it on my photographs. All right, and I apologize, I meant to show the layout as I was doing this so you could it would make sense to you why I have my dies rotated in a certain direction. But basically, as you're cutting these photographs, it's nice to have the angle die cut and the X Factor die cut glued to the grid paper beforehand, so that way you have a reference of which way you need to cut your photographs as you're doing it. So I'm not that good that I know exactly which way needs to be turned. I am looking at my layout to make sure that my two dies are rotated in the correct direction. Again, I did plan out my photographs, but when I get to making the page, I might forget which way the dies need to go. So anyway, so definitely use your page as a reference. So at the beginning of this process, make sure to cut with the angles and X Factor dies, lay them on your grid paper, so that way when you're cutting your photographs, you kind of can look at it and know which way the die, like here, I'm trying to get that center angle for my page, so I looked at my grid paper and saw which way the dies need to be cut. So I know with this one, the angles die needs to be a vertical direction, and I was getting the bottom portion. And on this side, I'm using the X Factor, and I made sure that my subject in the photograph was on the top left portion of the X Factor die just now. So yes, this is why, again, this is an advanced tutorial, because this does take some extra planning for making sure your photographs work with this particular die. All right, so I have this one. I'm really close to getting done here. This is going to be my last cut. So again, the angles die, I have it at a vertical and needed to get that top portion of the die. I'll roll it through, and I'm finally finished. All right, now I'm doing the fun part. This is the fun part to me anyway, and that's putting the photographs into your die cuts. So because you cut the angles and the X Factor dies beforehand, you know exactly where your photos need to fit right in. And of course, you want to make sure when you're cutting that you pay attention to which way your die is rotated and the direction it's going, so that way when you put your photographs within the dies, they're going in the right direction, they fit the right way. You don't want any upside down or sideways photographs, right? So this was all cut with intention and with care. All right, I'm getting to this last part. It's so satisfying seeing the finished page at the end. All right, so this part is done. I'm close to being finished here. I decided to use some pattern paper in my layout, so I'm cutting that with the center part of the angles die here to fill in those portions. And I'm also using die set A. This is the 2x2 die, and this will fill in the 4 corners. All right, so this is again the easy part. I did cut with both of the dies 4 times with pattern paper. This is from Bella Boulevard. It's really cute. Alright, again, I'm using my repositionable glue. And so that was easy to place all those corners in. And now I'm going to place in the triangles. And as you can see, they fit within the angles die perfectly. And it took the guesswork out of it. I just know it fits right in the center of the angles die frame or die cut. Alright, here's my final piece. And I am finished. Alright, this completes today's tutorial. I really enjoyed making a page with the angles and the X Factor dies. They make a spectacular layout together. And if you wanted to keep things more simple, you could just use the angle dies by itself to make a fun border around your layout. So the X Factor die really is just a bonus to make a fun design like this one. Alright, if you enjoyed today's tutorial, let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Also, if you enjoy watching a lot of our tutorials, I recommend subscribing to our channel so that way you can be updated on our future videos. So we put one up pretty much every week. So definitely subscribe if you want to see more. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll see you next time.